I'm Dale Carroll with the Department of Commerce. I know many of you. I recognize people that I've worked with across the state, including, let me do a shout out to the people from Western North Carolina that I had the privilege of working with on the Advantage Green program. I'm glad to see several of you here today. And we also have people throughout the East and the Piedmont and so on and so forth. In fact, with that subject in mind, it's my privilege to be here today to introduce our governor. And the governor and I have known each other for 25 years. That includes a period of time in my career where my wife and I and our young children lived in the New Bern area. That's when I first got to know the governor. And so it came as no surprise to our family that the early indications of her leadership, that she moved into public service, was elected to the House of Representatives, and as many of you know, served in the state Senate, including leadership as an appropriations co-chair, 8 years as lieutenant governor, and now in her second year as governor, she is working on her 2010 agenda for North Carolina. You saw the release of her recommended budget yesterday, where she put a lot of emphasis on the priorities in that 2010 agenda for the state. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege and honor to introduce the 73rd Governor of the state of North Carolina, Beverly Perdue.
Good morning. I'm honored to be with you this morning. Dale Carroll is a good friend of all of us. He's a good friend of the environments and economic development. And I don't believe we could have a better Deputy Secretary of Commerce than Dale Carroll. And Dale, when you're governor, you say you're grateful for all the people all over the state, not just the people from the West and the East. So thank you for cleaning up that mess before I came up here. I'm delighted. And we're pleased that Ward Lentz is here from the State Energy Office. And let me just respond to that question. I know some of you are concerned. We're in the process of looking for somebody to head that office up, and if any of you have a card in your back pocket, I'd be very interested in resumes or suggestions, because energy and a green economy is one of the pillars of everything that I'm about as this 73rd governor of the state. Our goal in North Carolina, and you've heard me say it before, and I'm delighted that there's so many of you here. That's such a good sign. It's an imagery that we need to project, that folks have stayed for the second day, which is really a compliment to what's going on in the program, and that you're here from every place in North Carolina because you really are committed to building sustainable communities and helping North Carolina go green. And that's our goal for North Carolina. I know it will take years. I know it isn't easy as a country or as a state or as a town or as a home or a business, but we can all do this. And the more important thing is that we all must do this. Yesterday, as we leashed, I said it's like a dog, let's unleash it and let it run wild and see what happens, the budget. I continue to remind people that in this state we're going to have about 1.5 million to 2 million increase in population in the next 10 to 12 years, and you can't hide from that. And so all of us have some skin in the game of building sustainable communities. And that also means the infrastructure that is so critical to support people, the walkable concepts that we all believe in so much, and the choices of living in an urban or a rural area are equally important. And we only get there through leadership. And that leadership has to happen in every community in North Carolina, from the mountains to the coast. I believe that we can be at the forefront of not just going green, but of creating and developing the new green technology that will propel North Carolina and America for renewables, for energy efficiency, and the next generation of energy products. I'm delighted to see on the front page this morning of the News and Observer. No, I'm not delighted that I'm not there. Thank you very much. It's always refreshing to wake up and see them talking about somebody else other than yourself. They're actually talking about the appliances and the green energy tax weekend. That's a pretty cool thing for North Carolina. And I hope you all will all go out and buy a refrigerator or a washer or a stove or something to help us with the green energy paradigm. If you look at the state right now, there are really important things going on in the private sector as well as the public sector. I look at Progress Energy, and some of us don't like to be upfront about it, but the truth is we're going to have coal-fired plants in North Carolina for a while longer. Under my watch, I've made a mandate, a proclamation, that there will be no new coal-fired plants. But the bottom line is it takes us a while to get them offline, and all of us in this room are going to have a discussion about what kind of power we want to use. Are we ready to walk down the road to nuclear again? Do we have enough ability to get sustainables and renewables from other sources of energy? What is our choice? Because when you have 10 million people in a state, soon to be 12 million people, you got to have power. You got to do that. But Progress, and Duke as well, but especially Progress in eastern North Carolina, is really ambitiously converting the coal plants to natural gas. I think that's really critical for us. And the budget that I've just released includes a tiny little provision, a tiny bit of money, to begin the study of shale and how we may be able to use shale in the Chatham County area, and what our rules and regulation paradigm would have to be tuned to do, converted to do, if shale is indeed an answer for part of North Carolina's energy problems. But we always know that anything that the utilities can do to reduce air pollution and to help us transition to greener, cleaner sources of fuel is critically important. And again, we all have skin in this game. In Charlotte, many of you have been there with me. We are building an energy cluster, I believe, that can be unparalleled across the country. We brought in companies like Siemens and Shaw and Celgard to help put the foundation into that cluster. Dale and the Department of Commerce has been incredibly important in helping us move there. A couple of months ago, we announced that Siemens was creating 800 new jobs to power its global hub for gas and steam turbine production. I want us to make some windmills in North Carolina. We can do all this, and we can also do biofuel and other kinds of alternative energy sources. And yeah, I know it's not the quickest, cleanest, easiest way to do business, but we are gradually trying to make our way through the permitting process, including the federal governments, to really get a handle on what we can do with wind energy off the coast. Senator Bass Knight and I have led that effort. We have stepped up where people were very reluctant to allow us to do windmills in their horizon, their view. I understand that. But as we speak, Duke Energy is helping front the cost to put those windmills off the Pamlico Sound so that we can see what the capacity is for North Carolina to plug into the energy grid. I have written and talked to the administration in Washington very directly about the recent news that the president is going to support further exploration for natural gas off the coast of not any of the Florida states or the Gulf states, but sweet old North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and down in Georgia and South Carolina. I've been very direct, as I believe you would want me to be. I will fight to the end any movement that degrades our environmental quality or the quality of our tourism capacity on the coast of North Carolina. If we do, thank you. I feel strongly about it. I will be very willing, as you've seen me say over the last 15 months, to continue to look at what we can do safely in an environmentally sound way in the federal waters to look to see if we have any capacity for natural gas off the coast of North Carolina. I have asked them to be very cautious because, as many of you know, North Carolina's coast has the most significant airspace qualities in the country for military training. And I can only imagine what natural gas rigs and huge turbine windmills, if indeed they can do, might do to the quality of the airspace that is integral to international homeland security and defense. And so we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go in this discussion. The one thing that I have made a constant requirement for North Carolina, and I need you, whether you're with the president on this issue or not, if they force us to move forward, even in a condition where the environmental permits are at question, I'm going to be mad, and you need to be mad. But if they can prove to us we can do this in an environmentally way, we need to all come together and decide if it's the right thing for North Carolina, for our own homeland security, and then we have to have a share of the revenue. I've been very, very adamant about that. If North Carolina gets in this game, then North Carolina has to have a derivative in the revenue sharing resulting from that exploration off our coast. And I'm going to ask your help on that. We have in place also in the state a utility savings initiative that I believe is making conservation and sustainability a practice across North Carolina in new buildings as we build or renovate old buildings in state government, community colleges, and our universities. We are working with North Carolina's own regulators. Y'all have heard the word. When I was in the General Assembly, I used to hear people talking about the weebies. And I finally said, "What is a weebie?" And they looked at me and they said, "Senator, when you go home, we be here and we do what we want to do." And the weebies in state government and in our regulatory system are working with us now to change the regulatory paradigm so that we indeed may have some different kind of energy efficient lights. As we were building out Green Square, one of our biggest challenges with regulations was the fact that they told us that we couldn't use the LED lighting because the rules didn't meet those kind of qualifications. Well, we're changing the rules so that all of us can talk the talk as well as walk the walk. And as we are committed to a utility construction plan around sustainability, our regulatory system has to allow us to move into this paradigm. You all have heard me talk about the Green Business Fund. I believe in that. I believe one of the templates and hallmarks of North Carolina's success is the capacity of our people to innovate and to think and to explore and do the research and development that we need for 21st century energy systems. And the Green Energy Fund, now $12 million, helps us seed innovation around the state. We've had some great wins with this fund already, and it's incredibly important, I believe, to those of us who understand that somewhere in somebody's kitchen or garage or somebody's office, they have a dream. And that dream is about how they can develop the next generation of energy for our people. And with the credit market the way it is for all of us, there is no venture capital available anywhere in America for those kind of startups. North Carolina has this green fund, which will serve and continue to serve as a startup fund for innovation around sustainability and energy and conservation in North Carolina. I think it's really important. The Department of Commerce is so important in this initiative that we've moved the energy office there because I don't believe you can separate green energy vision and direction from both the environmental and the economic development side from commerce. Because at the end of the day, the more we do to create a green energy state in North Carolina and to seed this green innovation, the more jobs we create in North Carolina. And y'all, in a state that has an 11.2% unemployment rate, unacceptably high, we all need to focus on how we can create jobs in our state as we create sustainability and energy. North Carolina's accomplishments are there. I believe, quite frankly, we've come a long way in nearly 6 years. 6 years ago, many of us, you did, but many of the rest of us weren't dipped in the baptismal font of green. None of us knew where we were headed. I was privileged enough back then, you've heard the story, to have some academics come to me and say, as Lieutenant Governor, you need to be smarter than you are about the future. And they forced me to sit down and work with the Nicholas Institute and Chapel Hill and folks across the state. They taught me about energy. I visited sustainable projects in Asheville and in the West. I visited farmers in the East who gave me a vision of what they would be able to do soon, sometime, quickly, with animal products and waste. I heard about the capacity of us to do renewables and to do biomass. I learned about the capacity to do a second iteration of the cell and the whole power paradigm for the 21st century. And I became as green as anybody in America. I will fight with you to the hilt to make sure that the words translate into reality for the people of North Carolina. This is all about jobs. It's all about the future. But more importantly, it's about doing the right thing for our people. North Carolina has no choice at all but to go forward in this green revolution that you have anchored and led for the past decade. I'm incredibly grateful that you allowed this one public servant to learn what you knew, to teach me, if you will, and to let me be a part of you and of this movement that will not only change North Carolina, it will change America, and it will change our world. Thank you. And with that, I get to tell you a little bit of good news that you'll hear more about in just a few minutes. We were notified this morning that sometime today, Vice President Biden is announcing 25 communities for ramp-up of energy efficiency building retrofits. And we were told by the calls that we received that some of that money and some of those projects are coming, do you know where? To North Carolina.